in our evangelism class, there are three types of evangelism. So we are focusing on relational evangelism. And I said there are proclamational evangelism, confrontational evangelism, and a relational evangelism. Proclamation, basically preaching. Confrontation is like you go and talk to people like door to door or street preaching and tract distribution where you confront people. Third is relational, that is reaching people through relationships in the context of everyday life. So that is what we looked at. And we saw our mission by taking, this is again, we're looking at this verse from John 17. There are three ways people live. Number one is isolation, right? I said some people live as a community, isolated in a mountain. Nobody else can come and live there. That is like Amish people or some other kind of, they're isolationists. Nobody else can go and live there. And I would say that's not a good evangelistic strategy. Number two, assimilation. That is what? You be like the world. You be like the world. No one can find you out because you're just like the world. Third is communication. Yes, you are in the world, but not of the world. What do? You communicate that to people. I am in the world. I live here, but I'm different, right? So that is what we saw yesterday. And we looked at, I said Christianity is to be displayed. And I showed you how Jesus displayed. And I said four things, very important. Four things. What are those? Jesus Christ, number one, lived among unbelievers. All right, Jesus Christ lived. One second. Yes. Jesus Christ lived among unbelievers. That's number one. Oh. Okay. So, lived among unbelievers. Second, he befriended unbelievers, right? He established friendship, right? Third, he cared for unbelievers. Fourth, he helped unbelievers. So I read those verses to tell that, yes, the strategy of Jesus reaching the people in where he lived was this way, right? So that means you are in the world. So there are unbelievers. You are to establish friendship with them. You are not to be selfish where no friendship at all. Establish friendship. Third, care for them. That they let them learn who you are. Learn who you are. And even if you can, you help them to understand your character, right? So that is what we focused yesterday, right? And then we saw the misunderstanding people have because we have James. James says, the friendship with God is enmity with God. You cannot be the friend of the world. Yes, you are in the world, you are not the friend of the world. Right? So that means clearly you are communicating who you are to the people around you, not being silent. Right? And he says we should not allow the world. Right? The way that world seeks to be satisfied, we are not to allow. We are not at home in the world because, yeah, that is true. We are not citizens of this world. So we talked about misunderstanding, right? Misunderstanding. And we also talked about our purpose. What is our purpose? Sometimes people are confused about our purpose. Our purpose is not to retreat from society. Rather, we are to penetrate society, right? That's a way, like not going away. You go and involve with your neighborly things, whatever it is going on, right? You don't be separate like some people like Pharisees do. No, I have nothing to do. No, try to establish friendship whenever it is possible. We tend towards assuming privilege that is in ours. What is that? We know, we saw from First Corinthians that we are not here to pass judgment on sinners. Paul says, 1 Corinthians 5. You be separate. Paul says, I wrote to you, do not associate with sexually immoral people and other people. Then he clarifies, I'm not talking about sexually immoral people of this world. I am talking about the people who claim to be brethren, brothers, and sexually immoral. Don't associate with them. And then he says, why do you pass judgment on unbelievers? Unbelievers are wrong. They are. God will judge. So your duty is to not judge unbelievers' sinful deeds. You're not appointed to do that. Please keep that in your mind, right? That's not our privilege. Third, our method, right? What we do, we serve in order to win, right? We serve in order to give. All right, so we have some principles, but before we go there, we need to read that verse, right? 1 Corinthians chapter 9. Please open your Bibles. 1 Corinthians chapter 9. Let's look at verse 19 to 23. Can one of you please read it for me? 19 to 23. 1 Corinthians chapter 9.
Though I am free and belong to no one, I have made myself a slave to everyone to win as many as possible. To the Jews, I became like a Jew to win the Jews. To those under the law, I became like one under the law, so as to win those under the law. To those not having the law, I became like one not having the law, so as to win those not having the law.
22 and 23.
To the weak, I became weak. To win the weak, I have become all things to all people, so that by all possible means I might save some. I do all this for the sake of the gospel, that I may share in its blessing.
Yeah, winning, right? So that is the idea. We serve in order to win. We become, our purpose is like, we wanted to establish a relationship. We want to do all these things to win, right? We leave our comfort zones, becoming friends with the sinners. We leave our comfort zones. We adjust our convenient schedules, making witnessing a priority in our lives. Right? Maybe we say, oh, this is not convenient. I have to do this one, I have to do that one. You are looking for convenient time. We adjust our convenient schedule. We say, we will adjust everything, because for us, witnessing, if there is an opportunity, we want to do that. Third, we free ourselves of the strong hold of koinonitis, right? Koinonitis. Realizing we will all have all of eternity to spend with the fellow believers. That means what? Sometime, it is more important to have sharing the gospel than having fellowship with the believers sometimes, right? Because sometimes, because we have an eternity waiting there to have fellowship, right? So the idea is this, giving priority for the gospel, right? And that means this can be called sometimes familiarities as well, which may be why Christ said, if anyone does not hate mother, father, sister, or brother, cannot be my disciples. That means you give priority for the gospel. Then sometime a family gathering, sometime guest is coming. And I have some guests today maybe coming. People can come. So what do you give priorities? Oh, that's what Paul says. I am ready to change everything for the purpose of winning people. For the purpose of winning people. Ready to change, right? So, here is the point again. We serve, but we never surrender. We serve, but we never surrender. Chapter 10, 1 Corinthians chapter 10. Yes, it is quite interesting how Paul brings conclusion about idol worship. Let's look at 1 Corinthians 10 now. He is continuing verse 27 to 33. Let's read that as well. 1 Corinthians 10, 27 to 33. If some unbeliever invites you to a meal and you wanted to go, eat whatever is put before you without raising questions of conscience. But if anyone says to you, this has been offered in sacrifice, then do not eat, both for the sake of men who told you and for conscience sake. The other man's conscience, I mean, not yours. For why should my freedom be judged by another conscience? If I take part in meal with the thankfulness, why am I denounced because of something I thank God for? So he says, for his conscience, he has to get the message. He has to get the message. See, there is nothing wrong in the food. But for the conscience sake, when he says, this is offered to idol, for his conscience sake, don't eat. Don't eat. And he says, for whatever you eat or drink, whatever you do it for the glory of God. Do not cause anyone to stumble, whether Jews, Greeks, or Church of God. Even as I try to please everybody in any way. He says, I'm trying to please everybody in any way. For I'm not seeking my own good, but good of the many, so that many may be saved. Right? So applying these principles, Paul tells Corinthians that they are free to attend social functions that involve unbelievers. That's nothing wrong. Suppression from does not mean isolation from sinners. However, a believer is not without biblical responsibility in those situations. Paul moves on to instruct him. He should respond if he finds that meat food provided is being done as an offering to false God. If someone is invited, and if that food is an offering, at that point, believer must stop eating for the sake of his testimony and the conscience of the unbeliever. His testimony and conscience of the unbeliever. The basic principle is that believers are free to socialize with unbelievers, but they must always guard carefully their testimony and obedience to God. Right? So, what I would say here is, as I conclude this one, I wanted to say that, friends, we don't surrender our values or principles. We want to have everyone friends, never surrendering our values and principles. So that is what we need to do. So please get these important principles in our life as gospel sharing is concerned. Relationship is important. Establishing relationship is the beautiful way that every believer can be part of the gospel, part of. All right.